All right, welcome everyone to Ohm School Live. GP Walsh and myself, Lisa Berry, are here because we are, well, we're not ready, but we're here almost not ready for World War III. The Battle of the Mind. Hot topic today, very helpful because it is what's going on, World War III, the Battle of the Mind. And one sentence to kick this off for me that really stood out. World War III to me, everyone, and please share in the comments if you feel like this is for you as well. The mind has been captured. And I know when the mind is captured, I want to talk to GPU today about how does our mind get captured? How can we either protect it? How do we release it? Like this is a we all know what that feels like when our minds are we can't stop thinking about something, or we're worried about something, or we don't have control of what's going on in our minds. At least we think that. I don't know, we're going to find out because GP, I'm going to have you help me here. So GP, the reason why this came up, not just because of all the stuff in the world that is going on that seems to be new or that we're worried about, it's actually this, I'm going to say the small, even the smallest details and nuances that come into our world via our visual sights, like what images were being shown constantly. And sometimes most times we don't even know, but the words people say and the stories. So I want to focus on the stories. You wrote something in the blog. I love this, is that no war or battle can take place without a storyline to support it. Why do we make these stories up?
Well, stories aren't primarily something. You have to remember that the nature of the human nervous system is that it is constantly trying to create an inner model that represents the external world that will keep it safe.
Ooh.
That's what it's about. It creates an reality as a set of assumptions, and because of the nature of the mind itself, it will create all sorts of stories based on that. It's a very creative thing, right? Including a sense of identity. Now, the fundamental underlying thing, right, that is driving it is the experience it's having in the environment. We went over that with the shape of water, right? That the nervous system adapts to the environment it's in. Well, part of that adaptation is that energetically now, this is subtle to speak about because it's not happening on a conscious level. It's not thoughts yet, right? But if the nervous system is built in such a way that when it consistently runs up against a particular thing, it automates the reactive behavior for that thing. So when something keeps happening in the environment, you'll get to the point where it automatically takes care of that, right? What might have been a threat at the beginning isn't anymore because it's managed to it's managed to put in a behavior that's going to respond to it correctly, and now everything's in balance. It's safe, right? And if nothing is a threat, just it's just there. You eventually don't even see it at all. You know, like about those times you got in your car and drove home and can't remember how you got home, right? It's because it's just been phased out, right? It's happening automatically. Building you walk by and say, wow, that's a new building. And your friend says, oh, it's been here for 10 years. You've passed it so many times that you don't even see it anymore because the nervous system doesn't pay attention to it. But all of that adds up, right? Think that it's doing that constantly for every single experience it has, right? And so on an energetic level, without has created a map of reality. What it regards to be reality is simply everything it's run into that it's had to adapt to. And that sense of that energetic reality, that energetic map, right, it is pretty static to the degree it's because especially in China, relatively consistent. It may suck, but it'll consistently suck, right? Which means that the nervous system has dealt with it, has put into place whatever it needs to. It's shoved to the basement whatever it's need to. So it's relatively consistent. It just assumes that this is the way it will always be. Now, based on that, the the higher functions come play imagination and activity and that sort of thing. And that's when it's just story upon story upon story. Look at children. I was spending a lot of time with my grand. Everything becomes a story. Absolutely everything, right? Nothing is just this. It's this and this and this and this and this and this, right? And it contradicts what my daddy thinks, this and this and this and this, but that doesn't make it any right. You know. So, are we getting a bad?
Yeah, I was gonna say I wasn't sure if it was just me. I was gonna ask you. Yeah, it's getting all you're blurry as well as the audio is just a little. I wasn't sure if it was me because sometimes that happens here, but I think it's yeah. I don't know what you can do about it, but thanks, Mary.
This is weird. I may be. No, I don't know if those things. This has never happened before.
I know it's still a little bit fuzzy.
Although a few times over the last couple of weeks, the internet system service here has gone kind of bonkers.
Right. If we
It
can
hasn't
just
been.
hang in there
Yeah.
and see what it. We apologize.
But
Sorry,
you can't
guys.
even.
I know
You
because
can't.
every
You
word you
can't
say,
even
you're like,
hear, huh?
we need that word. Well, let's continue and see how this goes. This is because this is but yes, Mary, keep us posted, please, and anybody else if you're noticing that. Yeah, Dominic is mentioning as well. We'll well, I don't. Yeah, we'll try
I could
to
try
go
to
on.
get off. I could try to reboot, come back.
Do you want to try that?
Right.
Shall we do that, guys?
Yeah.
Come on back.
I think I think you will remain. I will leave the studio, but I think you might remain. So I'm going to make you.
Okay.
I'm going to solo you, so you can sit and get very nervous and have to talk to everybody about yourself.
Me nervous.
Although we might disappear when I close it, but I don't think so. I think it will just rejoin. We're about to find out.
Live. This is what happens live. This is very valuable. So I'm appreciative that he's able to do that. Thanks, guys, because I live on an island myself and I never know if it's myself. And I was thinking, wait a second, if I'm still here, there, he's going to be back in a second. Whilst we are here, this is another fun thing, and I'll bring this up too. I'm going to be going into, so you guys know what we're going through the show. When I was thinking about this battle of the mind, it can be quite personal. And when I say personal, it can revolve around gossip, big one, right? Hearing lies, telling lies. I know I use the word story, and I'm trying to use it very lovingly because I know there's a reason why we tell stories, why we believe stories, why we think stories. We don't even know that we're telling those stories half the time, and sometimes we do. So I wanted to go into this because when we hear stories from other people, that they're telling us their perception of what's going on. If we know it to not be true in our own from our own perception, or it makes us feel uncomfortable or not right, how do we deal with that? How do we handle it? Because we want to come from a place of love, which we'll be talking about. GP mentions again in his blog, I love this, the standard being love. If anybody here has not read this, oh, you guys, the blogs are incredible. But the idea of when our minds have been captured, but we know we're captured, what to do with this. And like I said, it shows up in every parts of our lives every day. Oh, yay! See, I was just talking away. Jonas. Oh, I can't hear you though. Now I have no sound. But you'll look great.
Everything powered off, so I had to power the interface on again.
Okay, I feel like it's a little stronger. Yeah, a little clearer.
It feels better.
Yeah, there's no blurriness to it.
Well, you know what they say, a reboot will fix anything.
Right. Okay. Well, and I'll just.
That's why we have reincarnation.
Yes, and now I'll have you bring down the gain because now you are going to distort a smidge.
Oh wow.
There we go.
Okay.
Mary, the book, just so everybody knows here, everybody, if you haven't been able to grab it, just go to gpwalsh.com. And when you sign up for the light letter, you're also going to be able to it's called Angels in the Basement. It's a shorter read. If you can imagine GP writing a shorter read, it's absolutely helpful for life. It's a foundational piece. So it's free. Go and grab that ebook. It's wonderful. Called Angels in the Basement. GP, I was just sharing with everybody that where I was going to go with this show and why, and that slight but not big necessary for you is we hear stories from other people, whether it be in the form of gossip, lies, storytelling, true beliefs. They're sharing what they know to be true, which I love that you shared that. We build this internal model. What do you call it? A map of reality, an internal model to reflect our external beliefs. But sometimes so I like that you said that we are building the internal model to reflect the external model to keep us safe, because to not believe it means we aren't safe, or to go against it, even if we know it to not be true. So, um, where I'd like to go with this one, and this is a share, and this is why I reached out to GP for this specific topic. This past week, I had a lot of what I would consider a lot of gossip coming at me. And we all do, because if we're looking at TV or news or newspapers or talking to anybody on the planet, and there's gossip that comes through.
Facebook
But
is nothing
sometimes
but gossip.
gossip can be damaging and disturbing in small levels. Like, you may make a decision of what to eat based on hearing something and it's gossip, and then you're like, oh darn it. But to the big ones, like maybe you quit your job, maybe you don't you stop talking to certain people because you've heard something about them. So this really can affect us, and it can be heartbreaking, it can be challenging, it can be you don't know what to do anymore. So when your mind is captured by these foundational things that you live your life on, GP, what is when truth doesn't feel like it can save us? How do we begin with that? Oh my gosh, I know I'm captured. What do I do?
Well, the recognition that you're captured is a really good start, right?
Oh no, I can't hear you. Sorry. Now we need you up more. Sorry.
Now we need you up more.
Or
Can you
closer
hear
to the
me?
mic. There you go.
Oh my goodness, all sorts of technical problems. Yeah, it's down really low. Again, it's up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down.
I'd rather have
Oh,
you loud.
I know what it is. I just found the culprit.
Ooh,
Yeah, that's better.
you sound way better. Thank you. Okay.
StreamYard had turned on the automatically adjust mic volume, which
Ow.
I always turn off, and the furnace running, so I think that's what's happening. Yeah. All right, anyway, let's stay on
Okay.
point here. No one wants to talk about my furnace.
Okay. So we're captured. Our mind is stuck. We've heard gossip. We've
You're
heard lies.
captured. Yes, the first step in waking up is if you don't recognize the problem, you're in it. You're it. And this is how the mind gets captured. It gets stuck in its assumptions. And ignorance can simply be defined as a lack of capacity or willingness to scrutinize your own assumptions. Right? You just cling to them. Of course, the more unsafe we feel, the more we're going to cling to them. And that's what we see in the violence that's going on and the like, all the stuff that's happening, especially in the United States. I mean, obviously the Ukraine now too, but I mean the unrest and the like. It's been as economies begin to collapse, right? It's very natural for people to feel unsafe, right? And at a moment like that, you're either going to contract or you're going to expand. You're either going to step into this environment, or you're going to contract and try to hold on to the old one and get rid of everyone you think is the problem. Because it's obviously you're not the problem, everybody else is, right? And I guess I'm buffering and sounding bad again. Is that the case?
It did a little bit. You keep coming back, and I'm like, okay, we're going. I don't know what should we.
Yeah. No, let's just keep going. What can I say? We'll have
Yeah.
to check it afterwards and see if
Yeah.
it's any good. And we'll, it may not make it to the final version. We may have to
Yes.
just do this show again, and obviously it's important enough, right?
Yes, it is.
I mean,
What do we do when it's not our gossip or okay, so I like that you said that we either contract or we expand. If we expand, does that mean we're aiming for truth? Can you bring truth into this? I love you wrote something down. I love this. You mentioned, and I want to say that we don't want to seek a better story. The truth is not a story. So if does somebody use truth for their own agenda? Do we use truth for our agenda, or can truth not be used?
We use the concept of truth. Right?
Okay.
Therein lies the problem. When I think my story is the truth, I'll fight to the death for it. So the concept of truth, of something of being true, being an absolute fact, whether it's believed or not, is associated with my story, right? And now that it's associated with my story, it takes on the status of the truth, and therefore everyone must believe it, right? There's no such thing as a true story. It doesn't exist.
Oh my gosh.
Nobody's story is true. It's a story. It's relative to this or that. The truth is not a story. It's not a concept. It's not an idea. Right? So nothing is true. If we recognize that nothing was true, that doesn't leave us in the moral doldrums. It doesn't leave us in moral wasteland. Right? It leaves us with the power to decide what's the best in this moment under the circumstances. Now I'm arguing. I'm open. I'm creative. I'm looking, okay, this is the way the world is now. How do we deal with this? What do we have to do to make adjustments? Instead, otherwise, I believe it's true. And I go, well, this is what we have to do. We have to get rid of these people, and we have to be more strict here. And we have to, go back to Mosaic law or Sharia law, or that. I mean, that's what happens, right? And in fact, those are all just stories. They're nonsense. Right. And you can tell they're nonsense because they simply don't fit the world we're in anymore. They have not adapted to the environment. And so the nervous system, which naturally does adapt to the environment, is being constrained by these stories. And the story says, oh, if these guys would just behave, then everything would be okay. Right. Or we're superior. We can just take what you have. Right. And it's the power of empire, the right of kings, and all of that kind of stuff, which is all just made up nonsense, right? Which is finally becoming clear after thousands of years of just one story after another, one story replacing another, that had basically the same plot, right, and had the same destructive characters underneath, which is the sense of separation. That's the final story that is, I think, at long last falling apart. At least that's what I see. That's what I'm working towards. There is no true story. They are all relative. And if we get that, we'll stop fighting over them, and we'll start cooperating to see, well, what is it that we really need right now?
Okay, that's interesting. So I'm imagining, two people, just not the world now, World War III, but two people having World War III, and they're saying da 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 da, and they're saying, okay, that's a story. Thank you for sharing that. This is where you're coming from. I would like to not come from any story, but if we just focus on what is it you need to feel safe? Is that a good place to start? With a compassion?
That's just start with safe, and then it moves to what do you need to feel safe? What do you need to feel, all the way up to what do you need to feel that you are free to express yourself, that you're free to grow, right? I mean, safety starts with simply, my body is protected. I have enough to eat. I have a place to live, right? I'm not worried about where my next meal is going to come from. That's baseline, which we in fact have all the resources necessary to make that happen for every living thing on the planet, right? It's the story that keeps that from being implemented so that everybody does have that, right? It's not the lack of resources, and it's certainly not the lack of need, right? There's this story in between that says that everything has to be a personal possession, and I use it for my interests, and that's the best way to use it, right? I heard Bill Gates arguing for intellectual property over giving everybody in the world a vaccine. He'd rather have millions of people die than to compromise the intellectual property of the patent on the vaccine. That's a story. And we can go, oh, evil guy, get rid of him. That won't do any good, because it's a concept. It's an idea that's taken root, and it's pervasive, and it's all the governments, and it's it's in all the businesses. It's everywhere. That profit overall. That's a story, right? That that it organized. It used to be kings and aristocrats and serfs, and the story was organized around that, and priests, and you can see they're all stories. None of them are real. If they were the truth, everything would be working, everything would be harmonious, and the story wouldn't have to change.
Are we taught to be storytellers? Or is
No.
it innate? Is it an innate thing to protect ourselves?
It is an innate quality that is used for all sorts of things, not just protecting yourself. Right? It is part of the presentation of yourself to the world, right? I mean, GP as teacher, Lisa as student producer, right, is a story. It's a role we're playing, right?
Right.
It's not what either one of us actually is in essence. It's simply the role. So when I play this, this role, I am that, right? But that's not actually what I am. The storyteller is very creative. Look at kids; they're fun to watch, just hopping from one thing to another, and how the imagination can go. But what happens is over time, depending on where the emphasis is on safety, that imagination will be contracted because it has to focus all the energy there. If you're safe, it expands and goes off in all sorts of other directions and can do all sorts of wonderful things, right? I heard the other day somebody talking about the history of work, and that for the vast majority of human life, we were hunters and gatherers until the agriculture came. And as hunters and gatherers, the work week was 15 hours.
I like that.
The rest of the time was leisure time, just doing things. And in the times like that, we invented art, language, music. I mean, that's what happens. The the whole British Revolution in the 60s, the music revolution with the Beatles, all the bands that came from England, they were all working class kids. And the Beatles could never have formed if they had had to go to work. Their families were on the dole.
Yes.
They were getting money from the government to survive, and we got the Beatles. We got Cream. we got all these. The Rolling Stones. Right? I mean, it was stimulated. So this is what happens when there's a certain baseline of safety. But if all the energy has to go into maintaining safety, now you've got a teenage kid having to work in a McDonald's instead of hanging out with his friends or playing basketball or learning how to make music and that sort of thing. This is the tragedy of it. But it's a story. It says this is the right way to be. So now we're working harder than ever. Productivity is down, and we're not living in the golden age. It's so funny.
With saying that, I wanted to. A word is coming up, or a phrase, a term is coming up of living vicariously through others, and I would love to talk about living vicariously through someone and competition. And I think there's a fine line in there. There's no judgment on it, but I think there's a distinct difference of perhaps are we telling stories or gossiping or, just those because we either would like to have that life, but we don't want to own it, or we don't think we're enough to do it, or are we in competition? And so if you can't beat them, join them, living vicariously. Where does that come from?
Well, living vicariously is simply the story you've adopted for your own life you find to be inadequate. And so in order to compensate for the inadequacy and the sense that you can't get out of it, you live vicariously. You do it through stories, through music, no, not through music, through celebrity worship, through worshiping of your sports teams, watching other people compete. So you live vicariously. I mean, TV, Facebook is lived vicariously. I mean, let's face it, right? Yeah. I really don't care what you had for dinner last night. Really, I'm glad it was delicious.
I have to say that I do care what you guys had for dinner last night.
You're a nutritionist. You watch that kind of stuff, right? It is a cheap substitute for genuine intimacy.
Ooh. Okay. Ooh, let's hang on to that. A cheap substitute for genuine intimacy. And now let's talk about competition. And I didn't know if you were frozen. And so we have this your mind is captured, and we decide we're not safe enough to be intimate, have that intimacy, so we are going to take them down. World War III, right? Is that
Mhm.
the role there?
Well, yeah, I mean the sense of competition there's a sense of competition that arises out of friendship. It's kind of a, you know, you go out and a bunch of guys go out, they play a soccer game, they're knocking each other down, they're they're lording over it that they won, and then they go to the pub and have a beer and everything's fine, right? I mean, it's simply an engagement that can actually deepen friendship, because if push came to shove, they wouldn't be competing, they'd be working together, right? Then there's the competition that sets one against another.
Yeah.
And if you lose, you're not safe. Like the workplace.
Yes.
I mean, this is the way capitalist businesses work, right? It's a constant pitting against each other for either for status or just to survive. Because if you don't maintain it, you don't have a job anymore. And of course, the way this economy works in the U.S., because there is almost no, secure network, that if you lose it, you're out, right? And it's that cold. And so now competition takes on a completely different meaning. Now it's dog eat dog, and if my life is being threatened and the life of my family is threatened, Maslow pointed that out. The human beings are not violent. We are not inherently violent. We only become violent when we are pushed below the level of survival. When it becomes a matter of do it or die, we become violent. Right? And so that's why war is always justified in terms of these horrible people who are going to get you, and all these nasty things are going to happen, and you've got to get them, and we have to dehumanize them, and they have to be a threat to your life. Otherwise, we wouldn't do it. No, you just say, you know what? The truth is, they've got a bunch of stuff, and we want it, and we want to take it, and we want you to go kill them and maybe die for us so we can have it. That's the truth. But you can't tell that to somebody, right? You're going to go, what? I'm going to go die so you can make more money? No, sorry. Oh no, you have to tell a story. You have to convince them that there's this danger out there that they have to respond to for king, country, and family, and all of that. And at that point, if they're indoctrinated, if they believe it, which they do, that's why they grab young people, 18 years old, to go into the military, not old people who can't be tricked anymore. Then they'll do it and feel good about it. Feel virtuous about it, because it's been defined in the story as noble and virtuous and the like. And anybody standing back can look at it and go, this is horrific. Mm-hmm. This is absolutely horrific. But if people actually saw it, they'd go, whoa. Mm-hmm. We can't have that. That's what happened in the Vietnam War, right? It was on, every night at 6:00, we're getting real pictures taken by real journalists of the real thing. We're not controlled. It's shown only what they want to see, and it put a stop to it because the horrors of war were so abhorrent, right? And then immediately afterwards, the CIA, the military, they said, we can't let this happen anymore, and they completely restructured it so nobody ever sees what actually happens.
And having that story, and I hate to say this, but I'm going to say it's like we in our lives we take advantage of that. We know not everything is being shown, so perhaps something has come up, and we have this something to fall back on and say, well, we know that really won't ever be shown or won't ever come true, so I can say what I need to say to support what my safety needs are and my excelling needs are, so that I can have what I want to have. And how can we come from love? I love that you wrote this about where's my line that I wrote with your love? The standard is love. And if we have that, when you wrote the standard is love, sorry, the standard for what are we measuring to get that, and to get that standard when you said that?
Well, if we need, human organization, human beings, we need some kind of reference point to organize our lives personally communities, families, nations, and the world around what, and those have to be some agreed upon principles. Right now, that agreed upon principle is profit.
Oh,
That
oh,
is the organizing principle of the entire world right now, which is why you get what you get.
right.
Right? This is what you get from that. So now I can look at that and go, okay, looking at it just, objectively, scientifically, I go, okay, this is the model we use. I'm not going to, don't try to hide, oh no, it's not really about profit. We're about love people and all that sort of stuff. No, knock it off, right? It's about profit. Okay, profit's had its day. What's the effect been? Has it made things better? Has it made everyone safer? Has it pushed society forward? And the answer to all those questions is no, it hasn't. So you look at it, go, there was the principle that we did. This is the result. This principle doesn't work. Clearly, it's pushed us to the edge of destruction. All right, what is a principle? What's the principle? The organizing principle that is most likely going to lead to an equitable, sustainable, harmonious world where both the needs of the group and the needs of the individual hold equal weight, and the resources are shared. Everybody gets a chance to develop to their highest ideal, to the highest possibility. What's the most likely thing that's going to make that happen? That's love. If you take any principle and you push it to its extreme, you see what you get. Now we're doing that with profit, and there's some other ones as well. The whole king thing, you see what that got: tyrants and that sort of thing. The occasional benevolent ruler, but most of the time became tyrannical. And you got the Louis the 14th. It was the 14th that got his head cut off, or the 16th. I think it was Louis. I don't know. I don't remember which one. Too many Louis, but. But if you just take the principle of love, and if love was applied in every aspect of your life, could it deteriorate into discord and war? The answer is no, it can't do it. You can't go that way. So when I look at that, just objectively, just as how do you organize a society, I go, well, love. And I'm not, it's just not an old hippie here, waving a flower. It's reasonable. It's rational. It's like, yeah, of course. If love is always the mitigating principle, all disagreements would be resolved in the highest possible.
Okay, now I don't mean to challenge. This is our World War III here. I'd like to gently challenge that I'm coming from love, because we hear a lot of people probably in our own lives. But I love you. I'm doing this out of love. I'm coming from, they'll say this, they'll support that's it, and they do believe this. Parents can overprotect or not, or harm. Out of love, I'm doing this for your own good. How do we not have a story about what love is and know what the truth is of love?
Well, that's where wisdom comes in, right? Because yes, I can call anything love, right?
Yeah.
And what parents will do to their children, and heck, we go to war and we call it, we love our country.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I'm doing this because I love my country. I love my family, or whatever it is. So it takes more than just, it's what I think love is. What's the truth of love? And that means another level of discernment, right? It's loving to to protect my child, right? Well, if we're educated well enough to be able to scrutinize some things with a bit of nuance, we'll go, okay, how much protection do they need? And how much exposure do they need? And how much exposure can I give them and keep them from the worst consequences of their actions and allow them to grow at the same time, right? That would be something that the helicopter parents should consider. What's the impact of that, right? And again, you can look around and see the results of all of these different things being. I mean, you can look at it very scientifically. Just going out and look at what's happened, right? What's happened to the children of helicopter parents. They're not healthy and they're not happy, right? The ones that just like the ones that are neglected, right? So now
Yes.
you've got the ones that are overprotected, the ones you got neglected. You've got your extremes. Okay. Well, love has to be somewhere in the middle. But love would just say that what's the goal? Well, the goal is a happy, well-adjusted, highly functional, creative, and emotionally emotionally stable adult. That's the goal of parenting, right?
Yes.
Of course, in a culture where the ideal is profit, that's extremely hard to do, right? Because now that becomes the ideal by which you're raising your kids. So you got to get to school, you got to get your education, you got to do the right thing, you got to keep your nose clean, you got to get a job, you got to, and this is the model. You can see how pervasive it is because this is the global story. I mean, it used to be, American, the plains and, the self-made man, which was also nonsense. It was just in the movies and everybody wanted to be that. Now we're kind of in the middle of the, what Chris Hedges calls the cult of self, right? Where it's all about me, selfies everywhere and that sort of thing, that we've forgotten our interconnectedness, right? The law of attraction just suffered from that horribly. It was just, I'm going to get what I want. If you didn't, it was your problem because your vibration wasn't high enough.
Yes.
It's cruel. It's cruel to say that.
I just got goosebumps. Oh, yes, yes, definitely, you can hear that ringing. I've never heard of that before. Cult of self. Wow. That's a rude awakening for me. That was
Yeah,
like,
isn't it?
ooh, ooh. Yes. Oh gosh, that went so many places there for saying. I want to highlight that there because we talked about that flow again of safety and protection, and I like that as saying between protection and exposure, there's a flow that's necessary, and somewhere in the middle that is the love. And that was, you reminded me, just a quick story. When I was younger, I was stepping into the world of being an entrepreneur and stuff. I was very young, and I would rush home and tell my mom, be so excited and full of creativity and joy, and then she would say, "But Lisa, will this put enough into your retirement fund?" Like, I'm in my teens, right? And so I'm like,
Right.
retirement?
Right.
I was like, no, wait, why did you like, because she's overprotecting and she just really just popped my bubble, right? Burst my bubble.
Oh,
And there
yeah.
was too much. But she's coming from love. And so I needed to have that balance and
Yeah.
understanding, of course, scream.
Well, she was coming from her
Her own
highest
fears.
sense of what it meant to be safe, right?
Yeah.
And she called that love, right? That was all she knew. But the whole aspect of love setting somebody free was completely unknown to her, right?
Correct. Yeah.
And so what would be the requirement? Well, some wisdom, some self-examination, right? Is this really something a teenager needs to concern themselves with? Is it which is healthier, to have them focused on how much money they're going to have in the bank when they're 70, or is it more for them to focus on the sheer enthusiasm of the possibility of with a teenager, so that they go in a direction that works for them, that's satisfying for a lifetime, right?
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
And that's that just never occurred to her, because the assumption was this is the way you're supposed to live.
Yes. Yeah. And also too, that generation also was, they were only familiar with somebody having 1 to 2 careers their entire lives. Now we have like 20. And so she was like, "Oh wow,
Yeah,
is this
and 3 jobs at once. Yeah,
right?" And so her
yeah,
thinking was like, "Wow, is that what you're picking for the rest of your life?" And I was like, "Whoa, just could be for 2 weeks." No, I said.
yeah. No, no, but that's the case.
So
I once rented a place from a guy, and his father lived lived in a little house in the back. They were all from Poland, and his father had gotten a job, moved to Chicago, gotten a job, and he stood in the same place working the same for 55 years.
I'm gonna guess he didn't love it.
He was a nice guy. He played with my son. I didn't have two at that time. It was very little. And I used to play with him out there. He's a beautiful man. But it just really stunned me, right? That but for him that was fine, right?
Mhm.
Coming from some place, like, at that time it would have been communist Poland. It would have been very unstable and unhealthy economy. Um, And so to get someplace, safety was all that mattered. For generations, it wasn't about your ambitions, what you were going to accomplish and do these things. It was just do something, be safe, and don't let it go. That was the message I heard all the time.
That was my mother said that message too. So yes, and I think that's where I wanted to really have the show, and we're coming to a point where we're going to get to the comments here. I see some two or three questions I want to touch on. I was saying, don't let that down. One second here. Okay, here it was. Okay, so this is my final question. I'm going to go into the comments. Do we suffer? Because we know that suffering is when we want something to be different than it is. So do we suffer when we have been believing a story for so long, and we that's our lives, that's keeping us safe, but then we see the truth, but if we go with the truth, we can't tell that story anymore, so we're not safe. Are we then suffering? So does seeing the truth sometimes make us suffer? That was such a hard question to figure out. Sorry, guys.
No, it's a very good one. It's that I would have to regard as a necessary suffering.
Unnecessary.
Necessary.
Okay.
Yes, that is a necessary suffering. 99.9% of our suffering is unnecessary. But it's inevitable. The first dawning of truth is not usually. It's seeing that what I'm believing isn't true. And oftentimes I don't know what is, but I just know this isn't. And yes, it's an incredibly uncomfortable time. But that discomfort, if we don't retract, if we don't grab onto something else really quick, if we don't fall back into it, right, and kind of like dull ourselves in some way, that discomfort is the catalyst for transformation.
Oh, I'm glad I asked this question. I like that. Not to believe a different story immediately, like, oh my gosh, I'm so uncomfortable. Who else has a better story? Here, I'm taking stories. Somebody say one so that I can jump onto it. But to say, hold on here.
Yeah.
And that is the catalyst for transformation. Oh, that's so beautiful. All right.
Yeah. Without that's the energy that makes a transformation happen. And it's a hard place to be, but if you've had an insight that's deep enough, you'll recognize that you just can't go running someplace, and you have to sit with the unknowing.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's a good advice. I would say that's really good advice. Thank you.
It's also very powerful and maturing, because the willingness to be with the discomfort is spiritual maturity. Ooh, without that, we'll just run from one thing to another. I don't like that teacher anymore, I'll go to this one. I don't like that book anymore, I'll go to this one. This process isn't working, I'll do this. And you're on the self-help treadmill.
And some we do grow out of, and some don't fit. However, I like that you said that there's wisdom, maturity, discernment that comes with those, and being able to flow through them as opposed to jump.
Yes.
We're not jumping, we're flowing.
Yeah, that's right. I'm in the river, I'm flowing, I might as well go with it. I'm not, otherwise I got to grab and hold on to something.
Right. Yeah. Yes. Well, let's everybody, thank you so much for joining us here at Om School Live. I'm going to just read through, because I'm trying to grab one. Was earlier we were doing a lot of sound stuff. That was was it Dominique? If you have a nervous system disorder that does not adapt easily, is that true? First of all, when I'm just saying that, because how do you avoid the story of not feeling safe? Okay, how do you avoid the story? Yeah. Do we avoid gossip? Do we avoid stories and lies? Or do we integrate them, dissolve them? And yeah, I'll let you do that.
Yeah, there's a lot in this.
Thank you.
Because I have to I have to point out that there's the assumption of not being safe. Then there's the feeling of not being safe, and then there's the stories about not being safe and how to become safe. Right? There's layers to this. There is no such thing as a disorder that does not allow it to adapt. right? The nature of the nervous system is to adapt. It's like saying that there's some kind of disorder that makes water so it won't flow. It's not true. It means it's frozen, or it's been dammed up, right? The nature of water is to flow. The nature of the nervous system is to adapt. So the real question is, what is constraining it so tightly, right, that it keeps retracting back into the assumption I'm not safe? And so you can't like avoid the story of not feeling safe. Take it in a bit. Go to the feeling of not being safe, right? Because the feeling was there before the story, right? Because obviously there has to be something there before a story can even form. The story is what's the word I'm looking for? The story is the caboose on the train.
It
right?
corroborates, is it?
It makes up stuff based on experience. So this is the experience. Then the storyteller mind jumps in and starts finding all the reason why it's that way, right? Based on what it knows, and eventually, if it matures, it begins to turn more inwardly, and that scrutiny, intellect gets more refined, and now the intellect starts looking in the right place to answer that question. Where normally the story is just making stuff up as to why it is the way it is. So you go back the way you came. You notice that the mind's got all sorts of reasons. I'm not safe because of this. I'm not safe because of that. The mind will have all sorts of explanations, right? So put all those aside, because that's the story. It's not true. None of that is the truth, right? There may be bits of truth in it, right? But none of it is the truth, right? That's all the mind just simply trying to figure something out. And it can never figure it out, because the vastness of feeling and our actual experience is way beyond what the mind can conceive of, let alone articulate. So step to that place prior to all that. So when the mind says, oh, it's happening because of this, go, well, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. And just pull back and go, what's happening? What am I actually feeling? What is this? What is the thing that's actually here that the mind is making up a story about? Now you're out of this malaise. You're out of the mind at this point. You've actually stepped out of the battle for the mind. And you're into the actual experience that you're having. Now you can ask, okay, where is this feeling of not being safe coming from? But this is the subtle point, because that the mind will say, well, I was just trying to tell you and you told me to be quiet. And I'll have all its reasons. Okay, let's assume I don't know where it's coming from. Let's just assume I have no idea. That I thought I did. I had all sorts of assumptions about it. But since none of those assumptions led to any relief, let's just set those aside. There were strategies that didn't work. Now, what I found is that when I actually focus my attention out of the mind and into the feeling itself, that the feeling itself begins to reveal where it came from. It's a different kind of wisdom emerges. Because that, the nervous system, if it's sitting in a state of chronically feeling unsafe, it knows why it's there. And it only delays the process when we think we know what it is, right? Because of something we've read or tried or that. And we keep trying all these things to see if I do these things, then it'll go away, and it doesn't, right? Because it can't. It's an incomplete answer. So that which is actually feeling the lack of safety knows why. So you ask it, what are you protecting me from? And be really patient and loving and present and wanting to listen. And eventually it'll speak. Sometimes very quickly, sometimes not so. But even more important than getting an answer, because it's not really about getting the answer. The fact that you're no longer in the mind trying to force something to the nervous system. You're out of the mind and you're giving attention to it, and you're actually engaging it and asking a question. You have created an inner environment of safety. You've just given it what it wants, and it will adapt to that. because that's its nature. It will sense, oh, she's not beating me up now. She's not trying to force me into something. She's actually asking my opinion. Well, it's about damn time. But can you feel it? Can you just feel if somebody, somebody comes up to you and starts, man, I've got this thing going on. You go, oh, again, you should do this, 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 and this. And you just, start reading the litany of all the things they should do. How do you react to that? You just kind of like, you retract. You go, you feel beat up. You feel, what if somebody comes up to you and go, wow, really? Wow, let's take a look at that. Yeah, that sucks. Man, let me just be here with you a moment. I don't really know what to do. So, let's just kind of tell me about it. Talk about it. Now, which one of those is a loving approach? Which one of those do we want to have towards ourselves? And yet, it's the former that what we always do to our feelings, trying to enforce what we think is supposed to be happening on top of it, rather than listening to it. And that's why this is the inward path. It goes inward, and it can just keep going all the way down to the original innocence that was there before any of the conditioning got put into place. And that original innocence always feels safe.
That was so beautiful and so loving and so helpful. And I can't wait to read some of the comments. I can't wait to listen to that again. I'd like to share, last week I had some of this happen, and I had to be patient and listen. And what was interesting, GP and everybody here, is as I was patient and listened, I didn't just grab the first what was feeling. I ended up, I think, reconciling, or at least hearing so many other things that I was squishing my nerves. I was squishing down so many other truths, and I was, okay, I'm going to look for this one truth. I need the one truth about this situation. Come on, please. And when I finally stopped, I had so much come up, and I was like, woo. Like I was just zapped with revelations of, I allowed my nervous system to really share with me how many other places it wasn't feeling safe when because I hadn't asked the question on many other occasions. But when I gave it this one occasion, boy, did it have lots to say.
Sit down, Lisa. I got some stuff to say to you.
Yeah, you open the door here. I'm in. Forget a cup of tea.
We're having
the whole pot. So I really love that. I hope people felt from that one. And thank you, Mary. There was another question here. I like this one because it brings in the gossip term. It was from Sean. Here we go. Why does it seem that an in-person intimate conversation often turns to gossip? I love this question so much. And we not only maybe for ourselves, we may witness it or be gossiped to. We may be the receiver of gossip. And so I am excited to hear this one.
We may even find ourselves participating in it and kind of loving the juicy morsel of it in our mouth. Right? Because, that's why it happens. What is gossip? I'm taking a position about somebody else to make me feel better. That's it. That's all it is.
So what about the intimate conversation then? So are they using it? Or?
Well, it's in that case, it's not really intimate. What all you've done is gotten to the level of the ego trying to make itself feel better about itself, trying to prop itself up and give itself status in terms of somebody else's, which is what the ego does. So, gossip is always negative. Oh, you know what they did? Right? I would never do that. And the very fact that you'd be judging what somebody else did to make it gossip means you're holding yourself in a superior position. That's why it's there, because that's what the ego needs. It needs to define. Remember, the ego is a pattern of thought that needs to define itself in terms of someone else. So it feeds on conflict. That's what Eckhart Tolle called the pain body, right? It feeds on pain. It feeds on negativity. It feeds on that's what the ego does. That's its main source of food. And if you give it really good, nourishing food, it's going to get bigger. The reason it will continue to do that is because, first off, people aren't aware that that's what's happening. And so not being aware of what's happening, there's a sense of satisfaction that the ego, because it's fed it's getting what it wants. When it gets what it wants, it's happy, right? It feels well fed, and even be quiet for a moment, right, until it's time to feed again, right? What happens over time is, if the spiritual maturity begins to dawn. I remember times when I can remember time when I'd be engaged, and I felt that feeling, right, of gossiping about somebody, and that feeling of I'm better enough. But I also remember feeling a kind of distaste. It wasn't really satisfying, right? It was like I was not having a real meal. I was having a snack. So, the hunger was kind of gone, but and the more spiritually mature I became, the more and more I saw it for what it was, and it became increasingly distasteful. So that when it would even begin to come up, I would shift the conversation, or just kind of say, hey, I gotta go. I mean, I even participated in it anymore. And of course, that also meant that when conversations with people who were coming to the same place, it was starting to get intimate. Because when it's no more about gossip, it's really about me, and it's really about you, and what we're really experiencing, and where we really are at, and that's intimacy. This is really where I'm at, and I'm open to sharing that with you, and open to experiencing you as you are, right? And since those person aren't here, there's no need to talk about them.
Yes. GP, as a spiritual teacher who you have students and who share with you, are you able to see the difference very clearly and immediately when it is gossip versus they're coming to you with something for assistance to work through? That's a personal curiosity.
Oh, yeah. No, it's actually easy. If somebody comes into a session, whether it be group or private, and they're talking about somebody else, I know that they're just disassociating. Shouldn't they be like this? When people do this, it really makes me angry, right? Okay. Tell me about the anger.
Ah.
Yeah, I'm not interested in them, because they're not there. I don't even know what it is. But there is a perception of them that's creating suffering, right? I can't do anything about them. They may be total morons, right? But you don't suffer from them. You suffer from your perception of them and your judgments of that perception. And oftentimes that becomes, I can get really into talking about them, which just kind of keeps me from having to turn this way to find out what is it that's really unnourished, that's in pain, that's feeling unloved, that is being deflected by talking about somebody else. And yeah, I mean, it's you might as well wear a sign. It's so easy to see.
Right. Okay. Oh, wow. There's so much about, yes. See, when we titled this, I know, like, I wanted to get intimate about this because I'm safe to talk with you about this, and everybody here listening hopefully can feel this. This becomes the intimate conversation about having our mind, Third World War, yes, having psychological warfare, be put upon us, and all the ways in the small nuances in our everyday lives and our every second thoughts versus, oh my gosh, the whole world, and wanting to be Mother Nature and love the world and bring truth to the world and feel the truth and swipe away all this mind control. And it's a journey that we take. And I love that maturity is flow, maturity, wisdom have all been brought into this conversation today, which I really appreciate. And I hope everybody else is. And I thank you, everybody. Hello, everybody, both GP and I love seeing you all here. And I just appreciate you showing up and the little hearts that you send and the likes and sharing this video. And I know it was a bit wonky start at the beginning, but it's still worth it. I knew we were going to hang in there.
Okay, before we go, I wanted to add one more thing.
Yes.
And that is, it's so easy for us to point fingers at the propagandists, at corporate media, the news, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of that, government, politicians, all of these things, which are liars. Okay, let's just put it out there. They are lying, because they can't own up to the story that they really believe, which is I'm superior and me making money is more important than your life. That is their story, but it's so abhorrent, it's so inhuman, right? That they can't put it out, so it has to be sugar coated. But it's easy to point your finger at them, right? But that won't do you any good. That's just another disassociation. Just as I said before, somebody comes and they're talking about somebody else. That's the problem I have with the conspiracy theorists. You want to point a finger at somebody to make it, get rid of them and everything will be fine. It's a state of mind that infects us all. And so the war of the mind is not the bad guys. It's not the propagandists. It is the sense of a separate self. It's the devil. The sense of being a separate person, the sense that of I am the body. It is the sense that the universe is out there and there's me here. It's all of our beliefs about ourselves that make up the sum total of our experience is the capturing of the mind. And I love in the fact they even address this in the Heart Sutra, one of the greatest things of all time, sutras of all time, talking about breaking down the walls of the mind. The whole point of it is to break down the walls of the mind, which means to break down all of our assumptions, put them under the scrutiny until we see them as assumptions and they begin to dissolve. And then it goes on to say to live without the walls of the mind, to live without fear.
That's beautiful. I hope that we all get there. I love that. All right, who's ready to break some walls? Thank you, GP. Thank you. And thank you, everybody. And I think, I don't want to leave without making sure I did get to the questions, but I think that we had some beautiful comments and we're good. Well, thank you, everybody. We'll see you all next week. Yes, on Om School Live next Tuesday. Oh, and comment. Wonderful. Okay. Thank you so much, everybody. We'll see you soon.